A juror's role is pivotal. They hold the balance between freedom and incarceration. The Hunter Biden case was no exception. Each juror knew their decision would echo beyond the courtroom walls, affecting lives and stirring public opinion. The gravity of this responsibility weighed heavily on their shoulders. From the onset, the jurors were acutely aware of the stakes. Hunter Biden, son of the president, was under scrutiny. The media spotlight was intense. This added to the pressure. Jurors had to remain impartial, despite the noise outside. Their task was to judge the evidence, not the person. The jury room became a sanctuary, insulated from external influences. Inside, they were 12 individuals with a common goal: justice. But achieving this was not straightforward. They debated, questioned, and analyzed every piece of evidence. They knew that their collective decision would be final and binding. Every juror brought their own perspective to the table. They had diverse backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. These differences sometimes led to heated discussions, but they also enriched the deliberation process, ensuring a thorough examination of the case. The evidence presented was complex. It ranged from financial records to communications and testimonies. Jurors had to sift through it all. They examined bank statements, emails, and phone records. Each piece added to the puzzle, revealing a bigger picture. The prosecution presented a narrative of corruption and misuse of power. They highlighted transactions that seemed suspicious. Every document and witness statement was scrutinized. Jurors had to determine the credibility of each piece of evidence. Was it reliable? Did it prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? Defense attorneys countered with their own evidence. They offered explanations for the financial transactions. They questioned the reliability of witnesses. They painted a picture of a man caught in a political crossfire. Jurors had to weigh these arguments against the prosecution's case. The process was exhaustive. Jurors took notes, asked for clarifications, and revisited evidence multiple times. They knew that each detail was crucial. The verdict depended on their ability to piece together the truth from the evidence presented. The evidence was not always clear-cut. Some pieces seemed contradictory. Jurors had to reconcile these inconsistencies. They debated the significance of each piece of evidence. This meticulous examination was essential to reaching a fair and just verdict. The courtroom battles were intense. The prosecution and defense sparred relentlessly. Each side presented compelling arguments. Jurors had to remain objective, despite the emotional intensity of the presentations. The prosecution aimed to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense sought to cast doubt on every accusation. The prosecution's strategy was methodical. They laid out a timeline of events. They connected the dots between financial transactions and alleged misconduct. Their arguments were supported by expert witnesses. Jurors listened intently, aware of the gravity of the accusations. The defense was equally formidable. They dismantled the prosecution's narrative piece by piece. They presented alternative explanations for the evidence. They highlighted inconsistencies in witness testimony. Jurors had to consider these counter-arguments carefully. Each point raised by the defense added a layer of complexity to the case. The dynamic between the legal teams was palpable. It was a battle of wits and legal acumen. Jurors watched as each side tried to sway their opinions. They had to filter through the rhetoric and focus on the facts. This required discernment and critical thinking. Ultimately, the jurors had to decide which narrative was more convincing. They weighed the prosecution's case against the defense's rebuttals. This process was challenging, but it was necessary to arrive at a fair and just verdict. Section 4. Emotional and rational responses, jurors' inner conflicts. The emotional toll on the jurors was significant. They were tasked with a monumental decision. This responsibility brought with it an emotional burden. Jurors experienced a range of feelings: doubt, anxiety, and even fear. They had to set these emotions aside and focus on the evidence. Rational thinking was crucial. Jurors had to analyze the evidence objectively. They debated the merits of each argument. They questioned the reliability of witnesses. This intellectual rigor was essential to reaching a just verdict. But it was often in conflict with their emotional responses. Jurors also had to navigate their personal biases. They were instructed to remain impartial, but this was easier said than done. Every juror had their own beliefs and opinions. They had to consciously set these aside and focus solely on the evidence. This was a challenging but necessary task. The deliberation process was intense. Jurors discussed and debated every aspect of the case. They had to reach a unanimous decision. This required compromise and consensus building. The emotional and rational aspects of the decision-making process were deeply intertwined. Section 5, the media frenzy, influence and pressure. The media played a significant role in the trial. From the beginning, the case was under intense scrutiny. News outlets provided constant coverage. Jurors were aware of the media's presence. They knew that their decision would be widely reported. This added to the pressure. Jurors had to remain focused on the evidence. They had to ignore the media chatter. This was not easy. The media's portrayal of the case was often sensationalized. Jurors had to filter out the noise and concentrate on the facts. The media also influenced public opinion. This created an additional layer of pressure. Jurors knew that their decision would be scrutinized by the public. They had to remain impartial despite the external influences. This required a strong sense of duty and commitment to justice. Ultimately, the jury's decision was based on the evidence presented in court. They had to set aside the media's portrayal of the case. This was a challenging task, but it was essential to ensuring a fair and just verdict. Section 6. Reflections on justice and personal impact. The trial had a profound impact on the jurors. They experienced a range of emotions throughout the process. The weight of their decision was immense, but they also felt a sense of duty. They were tasked with upholding justice. The trial also influenced their views on the justice system. They gained a deeper understanding of the legal process. They saw firsthand the complexities of a high-profile case. This experience was both enlightening and challenging. The media's role in the trial was also significant. Jurors saw how the media can shape public opinion. They experienced the pressure of being in the spotlight. This influenced their views on the relationship between the media and the justice system. Ultimately, the jurors' decision was a testament to their commitment to justice. They navigated the complexities of the case with integrity and diligence. Their verdict was based on a thorough examination of the evidence. This was a challenging but necessary task. The trial left a lasting impact on each juror, shaping their views on justice and the media.